Alright, everything is all good to go, so we can go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, it's Steven from Tostemac. Hope you're doing well. I'm just glad this week is over, because it's been busy. Like today at work in particular, it was pretty crowded today. Like, near the end of the shift, my brain was basically dead at that point. I couldn't even concentrate straight. But yeah, hopefully your weekends are going good. Hopefully 4th of July went well. For me, it was pretty quiet. After a day's work, I invited a neighbor over to watch a movie. Saw some fireworks here and there as I was doing some evening exercises and whatnot. Oh no, the 4th of July was pretty chill for me. But yeah, hope your weekend is hope your weekend's going well. So today we're gonna be, or I rather, am gonna be sharing a couple of untold stories about my experience with fireworks. Stories that you might not have heard of before, and stories you might not believe when you first hear it. But believe me, it all happened. So let's see, where should I get started? Right. I should probably start for how I got introduced to fireworks in the first place. The first time I saw fireworks was not actually in real life, but rather in like TV shows and movies or VHS cassettes and whatnot. Like, I think the first time I saw fireworks was in the Schoolhouse Rock specials, those educational videos they had back in the 90s. They did not age well, I'll tell you that. That was the first time I saw fireworks, and it was a nice little illustration, a little cartoony and whatnot. But then when I saw the VHS tapes from Disney and whatnot with the sing-along songs, that's when I started to see, fireworks being done in real life through the VHS cassettes, mind you. And I remember being amazed and awestruck with how beautiful it was that there could be something so bright in a dark night sky, and colorful for that matter, But it wouldn't be until like a few years later or at least a few years later that I remember, that there would be a family tradition. Like back then, me and many of the other family relatives all lived in California together. So whenever there was a big celebration like 4th of July, someone's birthday, Thanksgiving or Christmas, we would always have these huge get-togethers where it's like, grandparents, parents, children, and cousins. Like the house, like every time we would have these get-togethers, the house would always be full of guests. Like, it was so lively, you never get bored. Maybe a little too much for me back when I was a kid, but hey, I was just there for the holidays. And for 4th of July, part of the tradition was we would have the get-together, and we would always have a bunch of boxes of fireworks to light off, which was for about like hour, 2 hours or so. Now, mind you, we did not have the rockets that shoot upwards, because one, they're a bit more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and two, I'm pretty sure there were some rules and regulations at the time about those kinds of rockets, so most of the time we were just lighting up spinners. I don't think they even had spinners back then. I mostly remember the fountain fireworks. I loved looking at them, but I always had to cover my ears because of the screeching noise. Like, even back then, I could not stand the screeching noises of the fountain fireworks. It's just very high pitch, and it was very uncomfortable to hear. So we would always enjoy watching those, even the ones that pop a lot. There was one particular incident where I was playing with sparklers for the first time. You probably remember the sparklers, like, those handheld things you light up and you just go like drawing in the sky or just waving around. So what I did was I went a little crazy. I was, moving around all over the place. I was so excited, holding it for the first time. Then for whatever reason, I stop. I look down, and all of a sudden, my right foot is on fire. It's kind of like when you're watching those cartoon movies when you see the character play around fire and they stop and they look, ah! It's like, I'm on fire! So, after I came, and it wasn't like an immediate reaction. It was like a solid 2 seconds that I was looking at the fire on my foot. And mind you, I was wearing sandals. I was not wearing socks. So the fire was on my right foot directly. So like a couple seconds, and I'm like panicking, and I see the bucket of water, and I just dash over there and just sink my foot into that bucket. I'm like, oh. So, like, it was a little cartoony, and, you know, I panicked quite a bit back then. But looking back, that was funny as heck. But, yeah, like, we would always have those big get-togethers. And it was always with, at my grandparents' place in particular. Like, they always had, like, the house big enough for the large get-togethers, and I don't remember who bought the fireworks, but they would buy like 5 to 10 boxes worth. So we would never go bored on 4th of July. Ever. And let's see. And I think the last time I saw fireworks in California was actually right before. It was right before me and my family moved from California to Maryland. And the reason for that was, you know, we were in the last few weeks before moving, we were saying our goodbyes to our relatives. And for that time, the 4th of July was actually at Opa and Oma's that time. Now, it wasn't as big of a get-together as like with Grandma and Grandpa, but it was still a get-together nonetheless. It was still a lot of fun. And I will never forget, like, we were at Opa and Oma's house, like, it was like a week or two before the move. And, you know, I was feeling pretty depressed, you know, like I was moving to a new place. I couldn't bring any friends and relatives with me. I was really sad. So I was walking outside, and then for the first time, I saw a rocket firework. The ones that shoot up in the sky and then explode. And I was like really close to it, too. It was like probably literally right down the street. And I'm just walking around. The next thing I know, I see this twirl of light going upwards into the sky, and then boom. And, you know, just seeing that rocket shoot upward had turned my miserable night into a complete 180. It was like, wow, I actually got to see that kind of firework in real life. Not from a video cassette, in real life for the first time. And, you know, it was really exciting, you know, like, up until that point, like, I've grown up for, like, you know, probably, like, 7 to 10 years knowing only the fountain fireworks, and that's it. Mostly because, like, again, rules and regulations. But, like, that was the first time I got to see a rocket firework, and it really brightened my mood at a time where it's like I was really still trying to wrap my head that, you know, I was leaving a place I called home for about 11 years. I was going to move to Maryland, you know. So those were all my experiences in California. Now, in terms of like in Maryland, it was a pretty good few years before we got to do fireworks like that again, because when we first moved to Maryland, it wasn't at Anne Arundel County, it was Prince George's County. Long story short, things didn't really go too well back then. And we got to know this amazing teacher from Benjamin D. Floyd Elementary, Miss Armstrong. And I swear I will never forget how this elementary school teacher scared me. So now this is a little off topic, but I assure you it will get more relevant as we get further into the story. So back in Prince George's County, there was this teacher, Miss Armstrong, and she was very nice, but when you got her angry, watch out. And, you know, I think there was like one time where it's like I was feeling a little cocky around Miss Armstrong back when I was a kid. And, you know, I had this impression that, you know, you're just only here in school, you know. Like, I'll never see you at home. I'll never see you anywhere else. So it's not really going to matter to me. And I kid you not, I think it was that following night or that following week where I was enjoying dinner, right? I was at home enjoying dinner. And I kid you not, Mom comes in and says, "Hey, Steven, look who's here." I I just finished eating my food, and then I see Miss Armstrong. I just pause for a few seconds, dropping the utensils like unconsciously, and I was like shocked. That I never thought in a million years that would happen. Like I was frozen in fear for a hot minute, and Miss Armstrong was just smiling like, "Hi, Steven." And like I didn't even say anything. I didn't, scream or shout or anything. I just like immediately bolted to my bedroom and locked the door. It was like one of those scenarios where it's like you don't think it will happen, but all of a sudden it does out of nowhere, and your brain just tries to process everything. It's like, what? But, over time, Miss Armstrong really became a really close friend of the family, and it was actually thanks to her that, we found out about Anne Arundel County, which had, much better opportunities for us than Prince George's. So it was a few years later, like I think I almost graduated middle school when we moved again from PG to Anne Arundel. It's like when we got to Anne Arundel County, that's when things really started to pick up again. We were starting to make friends. We were starting to make close connections, going out to events, Boy Scout stuff like that, And as we were building these friendships over time, like, with some people from Boy Scouts, Ventures Crew, school, stuff like that, we were starting to have our own tight-knit group, much like, the big family get-togethers that we used to have in California. We were having enough people that we could have those get-togethers again. Like something we could never do in Prince George's County, we could now do in Anne Arundel County. Like, it was absolutely amazing to, have so many people get together again, have these big parties like we used to. And that was when someone came up with the idea to have the family tradition of fireworks that we had from California and bring it here to Maryland. So, we had some Boy Scout friends that would buy a bunch of fireworks, and, we would get together for a nice barbecue and, have a good time, just like the good old days. And then, good old days. Now I'm really starting to sound old. So what happened was, it was the first few years it was just fountain fireworks, and that was it. But later on, what happened was a couple of the friends, which will not be named, not for any bad reasons. We're really good friends. It's just I want to protect their identities. A couple friends actually got the idea that, hey, instead of buying just these fountain fireworks, why don't we go up to like Pennsylvania and get the more fun fireworks, the multi-shots, the rockets and whatnot. And, I remember my mom being against it at first because, A, there was the rules and regulations for Maryland, and B, rockets and multi-shots are pretty dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, as I mentioned in the latest autism video. So, what I want, these guys are like, it's all right. We know what to do. We've seen some videos. We know how to set it up. We know what we're doing. And, for a while, it worked pretty well, Like, the way they had it done is that they had the rocket fireworks set up, but they would also have, like, about 4 or 6 8x8x16 cinder blocks to hold the rocket down. That way, it would not tip over. It would just keep straight, and it would just shoot upwards. And, for the first few years of doing that, things went well. Like, we got to enjoy fountain fireworks. Even the neighbors got in, too. Like we lived in a small court, and we had the neighbors chip in, we had some friends chip in, like we had all sorts of fireworks. We had the spinners, we had the fountains, we had the rockets and multi-shots. We had all kinds of fireworks to enjoy, and it was really, looking back, it was really fun, and I don't know, it just kind of makes me feel sad looking back, like thinking about all those good old days, I really gotta stop saying good old days. So like the fountain, like the rockets and multi-shots, like we would really enjoy those, but we also had to keep our mouths shut so that way the local police would not know and have us arrested. Oh, and just for the record, this was over 10 years ago, so you cannot convict any of us. So, so what happened, it was all good for the first few years, but I remember one year, and it was over 10 years ago, mind you, that, things were going good at first, but then a couple things started to go wrong. Now, if you've seen the latest autism video I did about, like fireworks or drones, you may have noticed that I mentioned a couple examples, like lighting the right foot on fire, but I also mentioned, like, a rocket tipping over or, like, something wrong with the packaging itself. I was not mentioning that just out of sheer randomness or, like, mentioning, like, what an article said or two. No. I was mentioning that from personal experience because there was one year where both of those things actually happened. So here's what happens. So we get through some fountain fireworks and we start to move on to the rockets. So it's pretty much same and usual. So, and, see, how do I explain? Yeah. So what happened is the guys positioned the rocket firework. And here's where things start to go very, very wrong. So what happened was the rockets lit. However, for whatever reason, maybe it was the wind, maybe it was gravity, the rocket tipped. It actually fell over to the side at the last second. And what made it worse was that it was actually pointed towards a neighbor's house, a neighbor's backyard. Here, let me illustrate for you. So let's imagine this circle as a court, okay? So the bottom right here, that would be my family's house. There was a couple more houses on the right-hand side, and then like one more house on the left. So what happens is the rocket tips over and is now pointing towards the rocket on the left. What makes this worse is that, this was like, fuses usually have like 3 to 5 seconds. By the time the rocket tipped over, there was 2 or 3 seconds already elapsed. So it was about to go off. So what happens was, unfortunately, that we can't get there in time to stop it. So what happens is it tips over and then fires. I kid you not. The rocket goes zipping on the roadway onto the neighbor's sidewalk underneath their vehicle, into the backyard, and then explodes. We just see a massive explosion in the neighbor's backyard, and we were just shocked. Like, I was actually freaking out because I thought, the neighbor's backyard would catch on fire. But luckily, I think it was like the day before or the night before, there was actually some rain. So thankfully, the grassy areas were already wet, so there was no way that the backyard would catch on fire. But like when we saw it zip under the vehicle into the backyard and then explode, like we had a few laughs, but we were also really concerned, making sure there was no fires and all. But thankfully, there was none. So we thought, well, okay, that was a freak occurrence, let's just move on. We could just move on with the rest of the show. Then comes the multi-shots. So here's what happens. I got my camera ready because I'm taking pictures of fireworks. I got the camera ready, like at the right angle where they're supposed to go off. And here's what happens. The multi-shot's lit. We make sure the cinder blocks are all around the multi-shots, making sure that incident doesn't happen again. But then something strange happens. 5 seconds elapse, and I don't see a single multi-shot in the sky. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, did they light the fuse? What the heck is going on? And then, right under my nose, at the bottom corners of my eye, there was this massive explosion. Turns out there was something wrong with the multi-shot packaging, with the packaging of the multi-shot, where it was not firing upwards, and they were all exploding in the box. So, like, what happened was, it was total mayhem. I still remember to this day. It was total mayhem, and, like, we were actually dodging, different fireworks and multi-shots left and right. It was exploding all over us. Like, we couldn't even figure out where was a safe place to hide, because, like, we were trying to, dodge the fireworks here and there. It was actually all going off on the ground when it should have been going off in the air. So, like, we were like, oh God, like, everybody in this court was panicking. Everybody. Like, everyone was, like, ducking for cover, running, and, hiding and stuff, It was like so freaky. Like, thankfully it didn't last that long. Since all the multi-shots went off at once, it was only like a few seconds, But that few seconds felt like an eternity for us involved, Like, we were worried about getting hit or getting burned or something like that, But thankfully, again, there was no fires. But unfortunately, there was an injury. One of our friends actually got hit around the chest area right here, and unfortunately that was Miss Armstrong. Now, thankfully, even though the rocket hit her, or the multi-shot, I should say, we got her inside quickly, making sure, to do appropriate first aid, like cleaning up any bleeding spots, or like, cleaning the area and, applying whatever first aid or whatever. Thankfully, physically it just left a scratch, and, it definitely knocked the wind out of her, that's for sure. But thankfully she was able to, get back up, catch her breath again, and, like, thinking back, like, thankfully it wasn't anything like life-threatening, but it was definitely scary, like, we thought we had everything under control, we thought we could, predict anything, but, like, when she got hit with that firework, all of us got scared, we thought, like, do we have to call an ambulance? Is she going to be sent to the ER? Her kid was freaking out, like, her mother got hurt by a firework, and it was pretty scary for her too. Like, from what I've heard, she's gotten over it now. Like, we're still on good terms. We all agreed that it was an accident, nothing more. But, like, at the time, it's not just, like, the physical injury, but there's also, like, that scary memory that stays with you, It was quite a few years before sorry, let me get my words right. It was quite some time before, she fully moved on from that firework accident. Like, we were trying to make sure, she was okay. Thankfully she's okay now, but, like, it was really scary, and it was at that point where we actually stopped having those firework traditions, like, like fountain fireworks, that was okay, but, like, the rockets and the multi-shots, no, we would stay away from and not use ever again. Kind of like that old saying, it's always fun until somebody gets hurt, and in this case, someone seriously got hurt, So that's why I put in the warning in that autism video, like, this should only be handled by people who know what they're doing, or what we call experts, but also to make sure to check the local laws and regulations regarding fireworks as they differ from where you live. Like, those regulations are there for a reason, and it's like, back then we didn't really think of it too much, but, like, after the accident we were like, okay, maybe those rules are there for a reason, So it was definitely scary, but thankfully no one had to be sent to the ER. Over time, everybody was able to move on from it. but it didn't really diminish our love for fireworks too much. Like, we couldn't do those firework get-togethers anymore. Like, we still had the get-togethers on 4th of July. Don't get me wrong. We still had those big get-togethers and barbecues, but we couldn't do those big fireworks stuff anymore. You know, we had to make sure everyone would be safe, you know. So nowadays, it's like the only times, you know, I get to see fireworks is like, you know, like from like outside from the house view, or like whenever I go to like a baseball game. You know, I go to those every now and then. And it's like, to this day, I still enjoy looking at fireworks because, you know, like, you never know what you're going to get. Like, you never know what kind of colors, size, brightness, that kind of stuff. There's always like this element of mystery, if you will. And, you know, for some autistic people, they probably won't like it. But for me, that unpredictability and sense of mystery, it's what kept me on my toes, you know. It really got me excited for what would come next. So now, I know we're like a few more minutes left in the stream, but like I do want to briefly mention the drone light stuff. The first time I got introduced to drone lights was a couple years ago, and it was about this New Year's celebration. And my dad was showing me about like footage from another country where they had drone light shows for the first time, and I was like amazed with, you know, what they were doing with that. Like, I was absolutely fascinated with that kind of technology. And like when I was thinking about like, you know, the ups and downs of fireworks and the ups and downs of drone lights, it really got me thinking, you know, like maybe drone lights are the way of the future. You know, maybe there would be like this gradual shift away from fireworks. But I'm not sure if that shift would be completely, though, because there's still a lot of people, myself included, that still enjoy fireworks. But at the same time, there are those, you know, that suffer from PTSD, or those with sensory sensitivities that may not enjoy fireworks that much, in which case, you know, drone lights would be a much better option. But, you know, it's still up in the air right now. Like, drones have been around for like 12 years. They're still going strong, still doing amazing shows all around the world. But, you know, regardless of what happens in the future, I believe fireworks will always have a special place in my heart, with both the good times and the bad times. You know, like, it's kind of like a core memory, if you will. Like, just seeing the fireworks as part of a tradition, seeing this beautiful artistic light that shines even in the darkest of nights, those memories are ones I will never forget, you know. And maybe it's the same for all of you. Like, if you have experience with any particular experience with fireworks or drone lights, you know, just let us know in the comments section below. So yeah, I think now would be a pretty good point to wrap up the live stream, just sharing some stories that were never told before. And this was over like a long time ago, over 10 years ago, so. But in any case, I'm going to, you know, wrap up for now. And tomorrow we will have the Chow Garden live stream, something you guys can look forward to. But I will say, next weekend, there will not be any live streams next weekend because I'll actually be out of state. So, as always, I appreciate your understanding, and yeah, we'll go and wrap it up. So, thank you very much for watching the live stream, whether you're watching it live or watching it later. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff that makes Tostemac grow. And tomorrow we will have the Chow Garden live stream at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So, until the next video or live stream,